Most people start learning a new language in the wrong way, and ultimately that's the reason that they start losing motivation and give up. So what do I mean when I say the wrong way? Well, it's very common that when we start learning a different language, we start with the words and grammar behind it. So structure of words and how they're assembled to make phrases. However, this can be really boring and impractical for most people. If you're the sort of person who'd like to learn a language so you can go abroad or go and communicate with different natives on the street or in general day-to-day conversation, then this isn't a good start for you. Instead, focus on phrases because they're ready-made and they take grammar out of the equation. You're more able to enjoy the process because you can try out different things with native speakers, get proof that what you're learning is working because you're actually able to hold a small conversation with native speakers, and you enjoy the process because you feel good about your ability to communicate despite it not being grammatically correct. So in this video, I'm going to break down why that is and the psychological reasons behind each one and what you can do to maintain your motivation in the long term. My name's James, I'm a native English speaker. Puedo hablar español y anche posso parlare italiano. I help people reach their language goals in far less time. So, why would you not study grammar at the start, and why would you focus on the emotional side of language initially? Well, it takes a long time, especially if we're starting right at the start. It can take a long time to build up any proof that it's actually working. It's similar to fitness, really, where in the first few weeks you're not really seeing any results, but then after some time you can start to see the fruits of your labour paying off. The issue is with language learning, we start with apps like Duolingo or we sign up to a language school and they start by teaching us grammar or the structure of a sentence. And by doing this, we're essentially starting with the boring stuff. And it comes with a promise that in the future, at some point, we'll be able to use this to our advantage and communicate with native speakers. Where the reality of that is that it can take a long time to learn the grammar. And with the grammar alone, it's a bit useless really to communicate with native speakers because it helps to assemble the words in the correct structure. But if you're not saying anything or getting any feedback or proof that what you're saying or what you're learning is actually useful in real life, then what will happen is you'll lose motivation because you'll be thinking, well, I'm learning all this, I'm putting all this effort into learning this language, but nothing's happening. So it's a bit like going to a gym, putting loads of effort in, not seeing your body change or your fitness change in any way, but you're still hungry every day. You're trying to reduce your calorie intake and you're spending a lot of time getting your body into shape, but you're not seeing anything. So what's the solution to this? Well, first thing, don't start with grammar when you're learning a different language. Instead, start with ready-made phrases. So think of the scenarios that you'd like to learn a language for. So for example, if you're an English person and you want to go to Spain on your holiday, can be any country, but I'm going to pick Spain for this example, and you want to be able to sit in a restaurant with your friends and you want to be able to ask and communicate with the waiter or waitress in Spanish. And you want to say things like, how much is this? Or is this spicy? Or even when you enter the restaurant, you might want to say, oh, can I have a table for six, please? Or similar things like that, where you need to know the numbers, a few different phrases, a few different questions. And obviously, when they respond to you, it's a good idea to understand what that might mean or in a situation. So think of it as if you're in England and someone says you walk into a restaurant and someone might say, have you got a booking? Then the answer could be yes, it's under my name, or no, could I have a table for four, or something like that, where you can sort of guess how the conversation structure would go in your native language. It's exactly the same for when you're abroad. So instead of learning the grammar, learn the phrase of I would like a table for six, please. And at this point, you don't need to know how it's constructed or why the words are in that particular order. All you need to do is get okay at pronouncing it. Just try and learn it a phrase at a time and pronounce it as well as you can do. If it's not perfect or it's sort of 50% accurate pronunciation, the worst that can happen is you turn up to a restaurant, you say it a bit off, but they get what you mean because in that context, they're expecting you to say something like that. So they're thinking, okay, he's mispronounced the word table, but I get what he means. I want a something for six, please. And you just turn up at restaurant. So obviously, that word probably means table. So even if you mispronounce the word, they can still understand what you mean by filling in the blanks based on the context. Most importantly, if you're losing motivation and you're a few weeks into learning a different language, it's most likely because you're not seeing the results from the effort you're putting in. In a different situation, imagine if you were to put a little bit of effort in and you saw 10 times results, you were like impressed by it. Most likely you would not be able to stop doing it. You'd be obsessed. You'd be like, if I put an hour in, I can get fluent. Like, imagine what would happen if you knew that you could get fluent in a different language by just putting in an hour of effort per week. Most likely, if you could see that proof, that evidence that what you're doing is working, you probably spend every evening studying the language and doing more of it because you know that in a couple of weeks' time, you'll be fluent. And it would be so easy to do that. So in reality, that's not true. It would take more effort than that. However, we can get closer to that level of motivation by learning the stuff that actually matters for what we want to use it for. So don't study grammar early on. focus on patterns of conversation, even use scripts. For example, ChatGPT, the AI tool that you can have on your phone like an app, you can use a free version of that and basically ask it to create a script for you as if you're in a restaurant speaking with a member of staff and you're wanting to have a table and sit with friends and have a meal or something in Spain. So actually what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use ChatGPT and show you. I'm going to use the voice side of it, so it's on the free version. And I'm going to use the voice side because I can't be asked typing basically. So let's try it. Hi, so I'm an English person learning Spanish because this summer or in a few weeks' time, I want to go to Spain, sit in a restaurant and have a conversation, or at least have, or at least play along with the scenario of me ordering food and turning up and having an experience, having a meal in a restaurant in Spain with a few friends. Please create a script starting from the point that we arrive at the restaurant and the member of staff asks us the basic questions you'd expect, and finish off by asking like what is the bill, or can I have the bill please, and then leaving the restaurant and saying bye. So create a script and include the Spanish phrase every single time, and obviously the English translation as well, so I can see both the Spanish and English and I can learn it ready for when I go on holiday in Spain.
That sounds like a fun scenario. Let's dive into it. At the restaurant entrance, staff. Hola, ¿tienen reserva? Hello, do you have a reservation? You. No, no tenemos reserva, pero queremos una mesa para cuatro, por favor. No, we don't have a reservation, but we'd like a table for four, please.
Right, so I'm not going to spend ages doing that, but that's an example of what you can do with the ChatGPT app on your phone. And just to repeat, that is free. So what you heard then is me using the voice side of it. And the voice feature can be really useful. It's actually a bit like speaking to another human, to a friend. And the benefit of that is, as you heard, the Spanish pronunciation is really quite good, considering it's like an American accent that I've picked at the moment. So what you can do with that is you can see a transcript of both sides. And later, if I go off that, if I close it, a few minutes later, it will actually give you a script. So you can follow that and you can see the translation as well next to each one. So what you can do is learn that phrase by phrase, and naturally you'll pick up the word order and the grammar as you read through it. But essentially, grammar shouldn't be something that you focus on early on. You should focus on that later. Grammar does have a place when communicating. It allows us to be more concise and more specific as to what we want and who we're talking about, and different tenses and things like that, and what we did. However, when you're starting out, you don't have to be grammatically perfect. For example, if I say, I go to the beach, I could mean yesterday or tomorrow. But if you ask me, what are you doing today? I can then say, I go to the beach. It should be, I am going to the beach. But really, it doesn't really matter. And when you're using a language to communicate with a native speaker, that's all you need really, and they can sort of guess what you mean reading between the lines. I actually go into much more detail about this in my Language Launchpad course, which is an online based course created completely by myself based on my 12 years of experience learning Spanish and Italian, and it's 100% video based, designed to learn any language. So it's not language specific, so the tools and techniques that I cover can be applied to not just one but multiple languages in the future if you want to learn that. But essentially there's 5 modules and 10 videos per one. It's designed for people who are super busy, haven't got much time, so videos are short, concise, and to the point, no waffle. And it's me essentially talking to the camera, but in far more details than I talk about in these YouTube videos. And also, many online courses don't have support. You just pay the fee and you're expected to learn it by yourself. Whereas for this course, I've included an online Discord community where you get lifetime access to ask other community members questions, ask me questions because I'll be in there, and it's completely text based, so there's no need to go on a audio or video channel or chat with anyone. You can just type a question in like that. Anyway, I'll whack a link in the description and the comments below if you're interested. So for the next point, I mentioned don't learn grammar at the start, try and learn ready-made phrases. Now that's all good, but how can you practice it and how can you gain proof to yourself that what you're learning is actually working? Well, I've made other videos about this, but essentially you need to practice with native speakers. It's all good and well watching videos on YouTube or Netflix movies and stuff, or even using a language app, but there's no substitute for speaking with a person in real life and making friends with them, building new connections. So you have to have that in order to test what you're learning and the phrases you're learning are actually working. And I'd recommend actually once you've got your script of your scenario, chosen scenario, might be in a restaurant or in a bar or asking for directions, you then practice that with a native speaker. And you can use many apps like HelloTalk or italki to find native speakers who want to learn your native language. So it's like a tandem, it's like a language exchange where it can be free. So you spend half an hour teaching them or talking in English in your native language, and then the other half an hour can be spent learning your target language, so maybe Spanish if they're native in Spanish. So that's how it works. So I always like in this channel to focus on the free or least expensive ways to learn a different language, and that is it. So ChatGPT is free, and also language exchanges on apps or on certain websites are also free as well. If you trade your time for their time, it's equal. Alternatively, you can pay for online lessons. I use Preply. It can be quite cheap depending on your language that you're learning and what country you pick the native speaker to be from, but there are a few options. So essentially, if you type in language lessons online, Preply will be a common one that comes up. And what you can do is book a half an hour or hour lesson with a native speaker. They don't have to be a teacher, they just have to be someone who lives in the country where the language is spoken that you're learning. That's it. Anyway, that is the point of this video. Normally, after about 4 to 6 weeks, you stop being as motivated and sort of hyped up in terms of learning your language. So if you're learning grammar at the start and the motivation is dipping quite a bit, don't learn it. Just give up on learning it for now. Learn ready-made phrases and use whatever you can to learn the phrases you'll need and then practice it. Do a role play situation where you're practicing with a native speaker. You're the customer in a restaurant and they're the staff member, and just read from the script and you'll learn it that way. You don't need to know how each phrase is assembled. As long as you say the phrase, it works, you get reply, perfect. That gives you proof that what you're learning is working from day one, literally. If you're reading from a script, you don't even need to know the language. Anyway, I hope you found this video valuable. That's it for today. I'll leave a few links down in the description if you want to check them out. But for now, see you later.